Hello. It is time for my November TBR and I'm very late doing this. As you can probably tell from the black aesthetic, it is Halloween today, so proof that I'm very far behind on actually filming this, and I'm hoping I can get it edited and uploaded tomorrow, which is the 1st of November, it should already be up by this point, but oh well, you get my Wednesday Addams aesthetic for this. So this is going to be for the Believeathon 3 readathon. I'm very excited to take part in this. This is hosted by Gavin over at How to Train Your Gavin. I will leave his announcement video down below because honestly, it is the best readathon announcement I've ever seen. So many middle grade authors got involved in helping him announce it, and it was just so incredibly done. Like, even if you don't want to take part in the readathon, please go watch his announcement video because it is so much effort has been put into it and it is incredible. But this is the compendium for it. So this is actually available for free as a PDF, but I'm extra. So I bought this off Amazon. You can find the link on Gavin's channel for it. But yeah, so this is basically just a compendium and it's got all the prompts in it. You can write down what you're reading for them. It gives you a couple of recommendations. And yeah, so my TBR for November is going to be mostly middle grade, but also there's going to be a couple of other bits that I'm going to try and squeeze in as well. So I'm going to first do the readathon prompts, and then I'll go through other things that I'm going to try and get through this month. Next month, it'll be this month by the time you see this. So the first prompt is the key, and the key prompt is to read a mystery. So for this one, I am picking Murder Most Unladylike by Robin Stevens. Now I do have mixed feelings about reading this, as I have seen very mixed reviews. So I am sort of going into this a bit cautious because I don't know if I will like it, but I had already bought it by the point I saw the not so great reviews, so I'm going to give it a shot. Also, sprayed edges, but this is obviously murder mystery, so I am looking forward to giving it a go and seeing if I do like it. The second prompt is the fingerprints, and it is to read a book by an author from a different culture to you. So for this one, I'm actually going to be reading an ebook, and that is Moonchild, A Voyage of the Lost and Found by Aisha Bushby. I'm very excited for this. This is such a stunning cover and I've heard many good things about it, so I am very excited to go into this. Like, so excited. The next prompt is the scream, and it is to listen to an audiobook or read a book out loud. So for this, I'm going for an audiobook, and it is going to be Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Now, I have never read this before. I have seen the film, so it's one of those rare instances where I have seen the film before reading the book, because when I originally saw the film, I did not know there was a book. And then I found out it was a Neil Gaiman book, and I was like, yes, please. And I got it on Audible, so I'm finally going to listen to it. And I'm very excited to see how different or similar it is to the film. The next prompt is The Torn Page. Read a book with a supernatural element. And for this one, I'm going with 13 Treasures by Michelle Harrison. Now, I actually don't know anything about this series because this is the first in a series. However, I have read Michelle Harrison's other series, or the first 2 books anyway, and oh, I absolutely adore them so much. So I'm very excited to give this a go and see how different it is and see if her writing style is any different. But I have heard good things about this series. I believe it's a trilogy, so I am excited to give it a go and see what it's like and see if I love it as much as the Pinch of Magic series, because I love the Widdersham sisters. The next prompt is The Crown. Read a book that is set in an alternate world to our own. So for this one, I'm going for another audiobook because I don't own a physical copy of this, but that is Nevermore, The Tales of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. Now, everyone and their mother absolutely loves this book, so I'm very excited. Some of my closest friends absolutely adore this series and think I will love it, so I trust their judgment. I have literally no doubt that I'm going to love this, so I'm very excited to finally get around to it, because again, I have had the audiobook for a while now and not read it yet, and the third book just came out, so yeah. Next is The Spilled Ink. Read a book that features ghosts. So I wasn't actually sure on this one which book I could pick, so I had to look at the recommendations spreadsheet that Gavin has set up, and Potkin and Stubbs by Sophie Green was on this. So this was actually on my September TBR and I never got to it, so I'm gonna get to it this time. I'm very excited to read this. I have seen Jade and Gavin talk about this a lot on their channel, especially Jade. So I'm very excited to finally delve into this series. And yeah, apparently this has ghosts, so I'm excited for that. Next is The Dagger. You must read a book that is set in a dangerous setting. Now, I went on the first recommendation I saw for this because I own the book and I own the sequel to the first book, and that is Frost Heart by Jamie Littler. I'm so excited to read this. I see everyone, it's very shiny, I see everyone raving about this so much, and also stenciled edges, and look at the cover. It's so cute. But this sounds really good. It sounds right up my street and I'm very excited to read it, and hopefully I will love it, and then I will love the sequel when I get to that as well. Next is The Backpack. Read a book by a new to you author. For this one I have gone for The Ship of Shadows by Maria Kuzner. I love the sound of this. I literally saw people talking about it and was like, I need this book in my life, so I pre-ordered it. And yeah, I'm very excited to read this. There's like a band of female pirates, like need I say anything else for that? I'm very, very excited. But yeah, also this is another gorgeous cover, look. Love it. There's a lot of gorgeous covers on this, honestly. Next prompt is The Footprints. Read a book that features a prominent villain. This one's actually going to be a reread for me, but I've not read it since I was a kid, so I'm excited to read it as an adult and see if my feelings on it has changed, and that is The Witches by Roald Dahl. And you can still see the sticker. So I paid £2 for this. Well, my mum paid £2 for this in a store called Rodney's Books and Games, which was a little second-hand book and game store in our town, and most of my books came from there. And yeah, this is the copy that I've had since I was a kid, so I'm very excited to read this again. I loved it as a kid and I'm hoping I do still love it as an adult, but obviously there's definitely a prominent villain in this. So the next prompt, you know how I was talking about there's a lot of gorgeous covers on this? So yeah, this prompt is The Hand Mirror. Read a book with a beautiful cover. It could have literally been any of these, but obviously I picked a different one, and it is Wonderscape by Jennifer Bell. Like, look at the cover. So I'm very excited. This is sort of like a Jumanji style thing, which, yes, please. Love Jumanji. I did actually get an e-arc, but I have fallen so far behind on my e-arcs that it just didn't happen, and then I ended up getting the actual book. So now I'm actually going to get around to reading it and writing my review. About time. The next prompt is The Chain. Read a book that features a colourful cast of friends. So for this one I have picked Jungle Drop by Abby Elphinstone. So I absolutely loved Rumblestar, and Rumblestar has a very colourful cast of characters, so I'm going to guess that this one will also have the same, but I do believe this does follow different characters. But I'm very excited to read this sequel because I absolutely adored Rumblestar. The next one is The Flash of Lightning. Read a book that incorporates folk tales. Now for this is another one that is a reread, but I haven't read it since I was a kid, and that is The Enchanted Wood by Enid Blyton. Now I absolutely love this series. This was one of my favourite series as a kid, and I don't know what happened to the books that I had as a kid, but last year for Christmas my sister bought me all 4 books in these covers, and I'm very excited to reread them as an adult. Apparently there are some things that have changed, like characters' names, and there was this huge like uproar about it, and I get that everyone has their own opinion, but it's just so ridiculous to get annoyed about some names being changed. And the fact that the teacher apparently no longer beats the children, which, you know, I'm fine having that edited out and for them to just be scolded instead of hit. But other people clearly don't want that. But I'm very excited to reread this as an adult because I'm pretty sure I had the originals as a kid. So I'm excited to see what the changes actually are. And honestly, I think the changes might do the story a bit better. It would have aged it better. But yeah, this I'm pretty sure this does have folktales in it. I did try looking it up and I did find somewhere that said that it does incorporate folktales. So yeah, I'm going with this book. If it doesn't, then, you know, I don't know. I was going to use the 4th Percy Jackson book, but I'm not sure if that would count as folktales because that's more myths. So it was either this or Percy Jackson. So I went with this, but I'm still reading Percy Jackson in November. And then the final book for this readathon is The Shadow. Read a book that was first published in 2020, and I have gone with Dragon Mountain by Katie and Kevin Sang. I'm very excited to read this. I love a dragon book, and this is middle grade, and I've heard good things about Katie and Kevin's other series, the Sam Wu series, but this is different and I'm excited because it's dragons. So that is all the books that I am using for the Believeathon. Now I'm going to go through the other books that I'm going to hopefully get to in November, if I can get myself out of my reading slump. Okay, so these are the books that I am hoping to get to. So first up there is The Fellowship of the Ring and also The Two Towers. I was supposed to read The Fellowship of the Ring this month because I am taking part in Tolkien Along, and obviously Tolkien Along was The Hobbit in September, Fellowship of the Ring in October, The Two Towers in November, and then Return of the King will be in December. I read The Hobbit in September, did not get to The Fellowship of the Ring this month, so I'm going to have to read both of these. Wish me luck on that. I will be listening along with the audiobook because the writing is extremely small in my copies and my eyes will not be able to focus if I don't have the audio in my mind, so hopefully that will make me read them a bit quicker. But there's those two. Then I will be buddy reading the 4th Percy Jackson book, which is Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth. I'll be buddy reading this with my mum and my sister. So obviously me and my mum were buddy reading these, and then my sister was on book 3. She was like, I think it was 11 chapters in, and then went into a slump and didn't read. So when she found out we were buddy reading it, she got in on that when we got to book 3. So we're going to be reading book 4, all three of us. So looking forward to reading that. I need to mark out my pages because we're starting it on Monday. Then this is one that I am prioritising literally before any of my other books, and that is Vampires of Moscow by Candice Knight. So I am actually going to be on the blog tour for this. This is 2 authors who have come together to write this book, and I am very excited. It's vampires, yes. So I will be on the blog tour for this, and I'm on the blog tour on the 13th of November. So that gives me like 12 days to read it and get the review written. So that should be enough. Should be. Then I'm also going to try and get to The Wolf and the Water by Josie Jeffrey. Again, I wanted to read this in September. I wanted to read it in October and it just didn't happen. And this was actually the arc that was kindly sent to me by Josie herself. So I am going to also try and prioritise this over my readathon this month. So I think I'm going to try and read this before I read, after I've read Vampires in Moscow, but before I read those. The next two are library books, which now don't have to be, they were supposed to be back by like the 2nd of November. So I was going to try and either renew them or just return them. But now, like for some reason, my library keeps randomly extending the due back dates. I don't know why, but The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I'm very excited to read this, which is why I got it from the library. So I am going to try and get to it this month so I don't have to renew it after December. And also this one's not so much of a rush. Now this is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. This is the second book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series. I don't have to rush to read the library copy now. I can just return it without reading it because my friend Charlie has lent me her copy of the book, which is over there at the moment, but this was like right here. So yeah, not as much of a rush to read it, but I want to try and get to it this month so I can give her book back. Not that she's in any rush for it, but I don't like to hold on for them for too long. I say looking at 2 books I borrowed from 2 of my friends well over a year ago and still haven't read. Sorry Tracy and Liv. And then the final book I'll be reading in November is going to be a buddy read with Jaz and Kelly, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. So me, Jaz and Kelly, I've mentioned in my vlogs before, we were buddy reading the entire Shadowhunters Chronicles, and we finished after 2.5 years. It's 2.5 or 2? After about 2 years, we finally finished because we had like a months long break. And then this year we got back into it and just sailed through the last few in a couple of months. Then because we enjoyed buddy reading, the 3 of us, like so much, we picked a few other series that we wanted to buddy read. And one of them was the Ember and the Ashes series, which we have now read, the first 3 books. And we will be buddy reading the 4th one when it comes out next month. But while we wait for that, we need to read something else. So we are reading the Mistborn trilogy. Obviously, I think we're only going to get through the first one because this is not a small book. So that is another one. So this is a very big TBR. It's not going to happen. I can already tell you right now. Unless I get out of my slump, it's not going to happen because I will tell you how many books it is. So that is 21 books. I have only read 21 books in a month once, and that was back in like July when I was at the peak of my reading and I was like absolutely killing it. But I have been slumping now for 2 months. But oh well, hopefully this month will be better. I think this video is actually going to be longer than I wanted it to be because I have just been babbling. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to taking part in Believeathon. It's actually the 3rd Believeathon, and I actually missed the first 2 because I only discovered Gavin's channel just after Believeathon 2, I think it was. So I missed out on it, and then he was like, oh, there's going to be a Believeathon 3, and I was like, right, I am taking part in that one because I need to try and read more middle grade because I have so many middle grades. Like, these are not all the middle grades I own that I haven't read yet. I've got more. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to a middle grade month, especially since as I tend to read middle grades quicker, so hopefully that helps me get through them. But yeah, I'm really excited for this. Definitely check out Gavin's announcement video for this, and if you are taking part, let me know and I will check out your TBR video or post or whatever as well, and I will be keeping you updated in my vlogs and probably on Twitter as well. So yeah, if you liked this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bye!